The Helix commander stood on the observation deck of his warship and looked down at the human colony. His insect-like eyes showed no emotion. His mandibles clicked together in what might have been a laugh. 17 systems, he said to his officers. 17 systems now belong to the conglomerate, and these soft creatures thought they could resist. Below him, the colony of Vega 4 burned, not completely. The Helix were cruel, but they were also practical. Dead slaves produced nothing. Broken slaves worked harder. The commander had already decided what to do with the survivors. Most would stay and work in the mines, but 200 of them had asked to leave. They had begged, actually, on their knees. It had been entertaining to watch. And because the commander enjoyed a good joke, he had said yes. "Bring me the human letter," he ordered. Two guards dragged a man onto the deck. His name was, he was 34 years old, and until 3 days ago he had been a simple mining engineer. He had never wanted to lead anyone. But when the old leaders died in the first attack, the survivors had looked at him. He was calm, he was smart, he knew how machines worked. Now he stood before the creature that had destroyed his world. "You asked for a ship," the commander said. "I am generous, I will give you one." Did not trust this, nothing about the Helix was generous, but he had no choice. 200 people waited in the refugee center below. Children, old people, families, they needed to escape, and this was their only chance. "Thank you," said, the words tasted like ash in his mouth. The commander made that clicking sound again. "The ship is in orbital dock 7, it is called the Wanderer, it has been there for 40 years. He paused. "The fuel reservoir is cracked, the hull has holes, the navigation system is dead." Understood now, this was the joke. Give them a ship that could not fly, watch them die slowly in the cold of space. The commander would probably record it for entertainment. "We accept," said anyway. The commander tilted his massive head. "You accept a death sentence." "We accept a chance." For a moment something strange passed through the commander's eyes. It might have been respect, it might have been confusion. These humans were strange creatures. They never seemed to know when they were beaten. "Take him away," the commander said, "and make sure the other ships record their departure. I want everyone to see what happens to those who run." 3 hours later stood in the airlock of the Wanderer and tried not to despair. The ship was worse than he had imagined. Rust covered every surface. The lights flickered and died and flickered again. The air smelled of old metal and decay. In the cargo hold behind him, 200 refugees huddled together and tried not to cry. "It is bad," said a voice beside him. Turned was 28 years old. She had been the colony's chief mechanic before the invasion. She was small and thin, with short black hair and eyes that never seemed to rest. She was also the person had ever met. "Can you fix it?" he asked. Looked at the corridor ahead. Wires hung from the ceiling like dead vines. A panel sparked and smoked in the distance. "Ask me again in 6 hours," she said. "If we are still alive, the answer is maybe." She walked into the darkness without waiting for a response. Turned to the other two people standing with him. Was 67 years old, with white hair and gentle eyes. He had been an astronomer before the mines took his health. He was the only person on the ship who remembered Earth's golden age of space exploration. Beside him stood, she was only 19. Before the invasion, she had been training to be a pilot. She had never actually flown anything larger than a shuttle. Now she was their only hope for navigation. "The control room is this way," said. Her voice shook slightly, but her steps were steady. "I found it earlier. Half the screens are dead, but some of them still work." They followed her through the broken ship. Every step made his heart sink further. The Wanderer was not just old. It was dying. Every system was failing. Every pipe was leaking. The Helix had given them a coffin, not a ship. But then's voice crackled over the old communication system. "Come to engineering now." Something in her voice made him run. Engineering was at the heart of the ship, 3 levels down. Climbed through broken ladders and squeezed through half-closed doors until he found standing in front of a massive tank. The fuel reservoir. It was huge, bigger than any fuel tank had ever seen on a cargo ship this size. And yes, there was a crack running down one side, a long, jagged line that should have drained every drop of fuel decades ago. But the tank was not empty, something glowed inside it, something blue and cold and strange. "What is that?" whispered. His hands were shaking, not from fear, from excitement. "The crack is fake," she said. "Look at it, really look. It is too perfect, too straight at the edges. Someone made it look broken on purpose." Stepped closer, she was right. The crack was not real damage, it was a disguise. "But why?" he asked. Pointed at the glowing substance inside. "Because of that, this is not normal fuel. I do not know what it is, but the energy readings are impossible. There is enough power in this tank to run a battleship for 100 years. Had followed them down, he stood in the doorway staring at the tank with wide eyes. His old hands gripped the door frame for support. I know what it is, he said softly. I saw theoretical designs when I was young, before the helix came, before everything fell apart. And turned to him. It is dark matter, said, condensed and contained. The scientists called it impossible. They said we were 50 years away from making it work. He stepped into the room, his eyes never leaving the glowing tank. Someone did it anyway. Someone built this ship to do something incredible, and then they hid it. Above them, the ship shuddered. Through the walls, they could hear the distant laughter of Helix officers watching them on screens. The refugees in the cargo hold were praying. Was in the control room, trying to make dead systems wake up. And stood before a power source that could change everything. Can we use it, he asked. And looked at each other. I do not know, admitted, but I am going to find out. Nodded slowly. Outside, the Helix were waiting for them to die. They had given the humans a broken ship as a joke. But perhaps the joke was about to turn around. Get the engines online, said. Whatever you have to do, we are not dying here. Smiled, it was a sharp, fierce smile. No, she agreed, we are not. 3 days passed in the darkness of space. The Wanderer drifted between stars, moving on the last breath of its conventional engines. The Helix fleet had watched them limp away from Vega 4 and had not bothered to follow. Why waste weapons on dead people walking? But inside the dying ship, something was happening. Had not slept in 48 hours, her eyes were red. Her hands were black with grease. Empty food packets surrounded her workstation like fallen soldiers. She did not care. Every hour brought new discoveries. Look at this, she said when came to check on her. She pointed at a screen covered with old data files. Most of them were corrupted, but had spent 2 days rebuilding them piece by piece. The Wanderer was not always a cargo ship, she explained. That was just a disguise, like the fake crack in the fuel tank. This ship was built for something else. Leaned closer to the screen, the files showed old blueprints, technical drawings, mission parameters dated 60 years ago. Project Horizon, he read, I have never heard of it. Nobody has, it was secret, very secret, pulled up more files. Earth knew the Helix were coming, our scientists knew we could not fight them directly, so they built this, one ship, one chance. They loaded it with the most advanced technology they had and sent it out to find allies. Find allies where? Shrugged, somewhere beyond Helix space. The files do not say exactly, but they mention a place called the Veil, a region where other species were hiding from the Helix. Felt his heart beat faster. What happened to the original crew? His face became sad. They died. A plague hit the ship 2 years into the mission. Everyone was gone within a month. The ship drifted back toward human space and ended up in the Vega 4 scrapyard. Nobody knew what it really was. They just saw a broken cargo hauler and forgot about it. Until now. Until now. Walked to the fuel reservoir. The blue glow of the dark matter filled the room with cold light. So much power just waiting to be used, but there was a problem. The activation system is locked, said, reading his thoughts. I cannot access the dark matter drive. There is a biometric seal. It requires DNA from the original crew. The crew who are all dead. Yes, kicked a broken panel in frustration. I have tried everything. I cannot break the seal. The security is too good. Stared at the glowing tank. Behind him, through the walls, he could hear the sounds of 200 refugees, children crying, parents trying to comfort them, old people coughing in the recycled air. Life support was failing. They had maybe 36 hours left. There has to be a way, he said. Footsteps echoed in the corridor, appeared looking exhausted but excited. I found something, she said. In the old crew quarters, the original crew left things behind, clothes, personal items. I think there might be DNA samples we can use. His eyes widened, hair, skin cells. Maybe the medical bay has a genetic synthesizer. It is old, but I think it still works. If we can find enough biological material, we could create a genetic key. Looked at both of them, 2 young women, one barely out of her teenage years, the other working herself to death. Neither of them had given up. Do it, he said. Find whatever you can, try everything. Nodded and ran back down the corridors. Turned to, what are our chances? She hesitated. Honestly, very small. This has never been done before. We are trying to fake DNA authorization using 40-year-old biological traces and broken medical equipment. She paused. But we are dead anyway if we do not try. Then we try. For the next 12 hours, the ship became a laboratory of desperation. and two other refugees searched every corner of the crew quarters. They found old uniforms with skin cells in the fabric. They found hairbrushes with strands still attached. They found a preserved blood sample in the medical bay that someone had forgotten to dispose of. Fed everything into the genetic synthesizer. The machine was ancient and complained constantly, but it did not stop working. Meanwhile, faced a different challenge. The refugees were losing hope. Some of them wanted to turn back, surrender to the Helix. At least that way they would live as slaves instead of dying in the void. A man named led the opposition. He was big and angry and scared. "This is madness," he shouted in the cargo hold. "We are trusting our lives to children and old men. That woman in engineering has not slept in days, the pilot has never flown a real ship, and our leader was just a mining engineer." Listened quietly, he understood the fear, he felt it himself. "What would you have us do?" he asked calmly. "Go back, beg for mercy. The Helix need workers, they will take us. As slaves. As living slaves, better than dead free people." The crowd murmured, some nodded in agreement, could see the fear spreading like a disease. He stepped forward, not aggressively, just enough to be seen. "My father was a slave," he said quietly. "The Helix took him when I was 7 years old. He worked in their acid mines for 15 years. Do you know what acid mines do to a person?" The big man was silent. "They dissolve you slowly, piece by piece. My father lost his hands first, then his eyes. When he finally died, there was nothing left of him but pain and regret." His voice did not rise, it did not need to. "He told me once near the end that he wished he had died fighting. He wished he had taken the impossible chance, because at least then he would have died as a man." The cargo hold was silent. "I am not going back," said. "Anyone who wants to can take an escape pod and surrender. I will not stop you, but the rest of us are going forward. We are going to find out what this ship can really do, and if we die, we will die reaching for the stars." Nobody took an escape pod. 2 hours later, his voice exploded through the ship's communication system. "It worked, everyone get to engineering, it worked." Ran faster than he had ever run in his life. He burst into the engineering room to find standing in front of the fuel reservoir, laughing and crying at the same time. The biometric seal was open, the dark matter core was accessible, and the ship was waking up. Systems that had been dead for 40 years suddenly came to life. Lights brightened, air filters started working properly. The constant rattle of failing engines smoothed into a powerful hum. "We did it," whispered. She was standing at a console, watching navigation screens bloom with new data. "We actually did it." Appeared behind them, breathing heavily from the run. His old eyes were filled with wonder. "The dark matter drive is charging," he said. "According to these readings, we can make jumps, real jumps, faster than anything the Helix have." But then something else appeared on the screen. A warning signal, a flashing red light. "What is that?" asked. Smile faded. The activation triggered something, an old emergency beacon. It has been broadcasting for the last 30 minutes. "Broadcasting to where?" Before anyone could answer, the long-range sensors detected new contacts. Ships, Helix ships, an entire hunter-killer fleet emerging from hyperspace behind them. And at its head, the same commander who had given them the Wanderer as a joke. He was not laughing anymore. "They found us," said, her voice steady despite the fear. "They know." Looked at the approaching fleet, then at the glowing dark matter core, then at his people. "Then we better learn how to use this thing fast," he said, "because we are not dying today." The Wanderer's engines roared to life. For the first time in 40 years, the ship began to truly fly. And the chase began. The Helix fleet came fast. 12 ships cut through space like predators chasing wounded prey. Their weapons were hot, their commanders were eager. They had expected the humans to die quietly in the void, now they were angry. On the bridge of the Wanderers, hands flew across the controls. Half the systems were still unfamiliar. Buttons she had never seen, screens showing data she did not understand. But she was a pilot and pilots adapt. "They will be in weapons range in 4 minutes, she announced. Stood behind her, gripping a railing as the ship shuddered. "What do we have?" "I am working on it," his voice crackled through the communication system. She was still in engineering, fighting with systems that had been asleep for decades. "There is so much here, weapons, shields, things I have never seen before, I just need more time." "We do not have times." "I know." Was at a secondary console, studying the ship's database. His old fingers moved slowly but carefully through ancient files. "This ship was built for combat," he said. "Not just exploration, the original designers knew they might have to fight. There are hidden weapon arrays throughout the hull." Can you activate them? I am trying. The systems are connected to something else, something big, a central computer that controls everything. The ship shuddered again. On the screen, the Helix fleet grew closer. Their lead ships were already firing ranging shots, testing the distance. And then, without warning, a new voice filled the bridge. Authorization confirmed, neural interface restored. Welcome back, crew of the Wanderer. Everyone froze. The voice was female, calm, and somehow warm. It seemed to come from everywhere at once. Who said that? Demanded. A holographic image appeared in the center of the bridge. It showed a woman in an old Earth uniform, her features made of light and data. She smiled at them. I am Aurora, she said. Artificial Universal Response Operations and Reconnaissance Assembly. I was the primary AI of Project Horizon. I have been dormant for 40 years, waiting for someone with human DNA to reactivate the ship. She paused, looking at each of them in turn. You are not my original crew, but you are human, that is enough. Stepped forward, you are an AI, you control this ship. Correct, I have full access to all systems, weapons, shields, propulsion, life support. I was designed to help my crew survive in hostile territory. Aurora's eyes shifted to the screen showing the Helix fleet. It appears we are in hostile territory now. Can you help us fight? That is what I was built for. Aurora's image flickered and suddenly the entire ship came alive. Lights stabilized. The hull stopped shaking. New screens activated across the bridge showing tactical data and targeting solutions. I am bringing weapons online now, Aurora announced. I am also activating the advanced shielding array. The Helix weapons will have reduced effectiveness against us. On the screen, the lead Helix ship fired its main cannon. The blast should have torn through the Wanderer's hull. Instead, it splashed against an invisible barrier and dissolved into nothing. Shields holding, Aurora reported, returning fire. Hidden panels along the Wanderer's hull slid open. Weapons that had been silent for 4 decades roared to life. Blue beams of concentrated energy lanced out across space, striking the lead Helix ship directly. The enemy vessel exploded. On the bridge let out a cry of shock and joy. Gripped the railing, even who had lived through so much looked amazed. One down, Aurora said calmly, 11 remaining. The Helix fleet scattered in confusion. They had expected to destroy a helpless cargo ship. Instead, they were facing something they did not understand. They are regrouping, reported. They are going to attack together this time. Then we will not give them the chance. Aurora's image turned to, the dark matter drive is ready for a short jump. I can move us to a nearby asteroid field. It will provide cover while we prepare our next move. Do it. Initiating jump in 3, 2, 1. The universe bent around them. Space stretched and compressed. For one terrible moment, felt like he was being pulled apart and pushed together at the same time. Then it was over. The Wanderer hung in the middle of a massive asteroid field. Rocks the size of mountains drifted silently around them. The Helix fleet was nowhere in sight. Jump successful, Aurora reported. The enemy will need several minutes to locate us and follow. Let out a breath he did not know he was holding. Around him, the bridge crew sagged with relief. What just happened? Asked. We moved across space instantly. That is impossible. Not impossible, said softly. Dark matter propulsion. The scientists theorized it decades ago. They said it would take 50 years to develop, but someone did it early. Someone built this ship to travel farther and faster than anything else in human history. Aurora nodded. Correct. The Wanderer was designed for deep space exploration. My original crew was sent to find allies beyond Helix territory. We were supposed to bring hope back to humanity. What happened to them? Asked. Aurora's expression became sad. Even for an AI, the memory seemed painful. A plague, she said, unknown origin, perhaps something we picked up on a survey mission. It killed everyone within weeks. I maintained the ship for as long as I could, hoping for rescue, but eventually my power reserves ran too low. I had to enter dormancy mode. The ship drifted back toward human space and was forgotten. Until we found you. Until you found me, Aurora smiled again. I am glad you did. My mission was never completed. Perhaps now it can be. Thought about the 200 refugees huddled in the cargo hold. They had expected to die. Now they were aboard a ship with advanced weapons, shields, and the fastest drive in the galaxy. Aurora, he said, you mentioned finding allies. Do you know where they are? I have coordinates for my original destination, a region of space called the Veil Nebula. My creators believed it contained civilizations that had successfully resisted the Helix for centuries. If we can reach it, we might find help. How many jumps would it take? With the current fuel levels approximately 5, each jump will drain a significant portion of the dark matter reservoir. We must use them carefully. An alarm sounded. On the screen, new contacts appeared. The Helix fleet had found them again. They were entering the asteroid field, moving carefully between the giant rocks. They are persistent, Aurora noted. I recommend we engage them here. The asteroids will limit their mobility and reduce their numerical advantage. Was already at the controls. Tell me what to do. I will handle weapons and shields. You handle navigation. Use the asteroids as cover. Move unpredictably. Make them chase us. For the next 20 minutes, the Wanderer danced through the asteroid field like a ghost. Flew with skill she did not know she had, weaving between rocks and debris while Aurora fired at pursuing ships. 2 more Helix vessels exploded. A third crashed into an asteroid while trying to follow them through a narrow gap. The refugees in the cargo hold felt every twist and turn, but they also saw the explosions on the internal screens. They saw Helix ships die. For the first time in decades, humans were winning. When the battle finally ended, only 3 Helix ships remained. They retreated into hyperspace, running back to report what they had seen. The commander would know soon. The joke had turned against him. On the bridge, looked at his exhausted crew, at whose hands were still shaking from the intensity of the flight, at whose old face was lit with wonder, at the holographic image of Aurora who waited patiently for orders. We cannot stay here, said. They will come back with more ships. Agreed, Aurora said. I recommend we begin our journey to the Veil immediately. Will we find allies there? Will they help us? Unknown, no human vessel has ever returned from the Veil. The inhabitants are secretive and suspicious of outsiders. Aurora paused. But we have something that might convince them. We have proof that humans are willing to fight. We have proof that the Helix can be hurt. Nodded slowly, he turned to address the internal communications, speaking to every refugee on the ship. Today we fought the Helix and we won. 3 of their ships are destroyed, the rest ran away. He paused to let that sink in. We are not running anymore. We are going to find help. We are going to come back. And when we do, the Helix will learn that giving us this ship was the biggest mistake they ever made. In the cargo hold, 200 voices cheered. The Wanderer turned toward the distant stars and jumped. The hunt for allies had begun. The Veil Nebula was beautiful and terrifying. Clouds of glowing gas stretched across millions of kilometers, painting space in shades of purple, blue, and gold. Stars hid behind curtains of cosmic dust. The sensors on the Wanderer could barely penetrate the swirling colors. We have used 3 jumps to get here, Aurora reported. 2 remain in the reservoir. Stood at the main viewport staring at the nebula's edge. Somewhere in that beautiful chaos there might be allies, or there might be nothing but empty space and broken hopes. Take us in, he said. The Wanderer slipped into the veil like a swimmer entering an ocean. The gas clouds wrapped around them, limiting visibility. Strange electromagnetic waves played across the hull, creating sounds that should not exist in space. I am detecting artificial structures ahead, Aurora announced. Multiple signatures. They are trying to hide, but our sensors are more advanced than they expected. On the screen, shapes emerged from the nebula. Ships, hundreds of ships. They were unlike anything human eyes had ever seen. Some were long and thin like needles. Others were round like pearls. A few seemed to be made entirely of crystal, glowing with inner light. We are being scanned, reported from the navigation console. Let them scan, said. We have nothing to hide. A moment later, a voice came through the communication system. It was translated by Aurora, but the original sounds were strange. Musical, like singing crystals. Unidentified vessel, you have entered protected territory. State your origin and purpose. Stepped forward. My name is I am human from the colony Vega 4. We are refugees. The Helix destroyed our home. We come seeking allies. There was a long pause, then the voice spoke again. Humans, we have heard of your kind. You surrendered to the Helix 2 generations ago. You are known as a broken species. The words hurt but did not show it. Some of us broke, he admitted. Others kept fighting. We are the ones who kept fighting. Another pause. How did you find this place? The veil is hidden from Helix sensors. Our ship's original mission was to come here. It was built 60 years ago before the Helix conquest. The crew died, but the mission data remained. The crystal ships moved closer. They surrounded the Wanderer but did not attack. They were studying it, realized, trying to understand what they were seeing. You will follow us, the voice finally said. You will meet the council. They will decide your fate. The Wanderer followed the crystal ships deeper into the nebula. After an hour of travel, they emerged into a clear zone. a pocket of calm space surrounded by the swirling gas clouds. And in that pocket there was a world. Not a planet exactly. It was a constructed habitat. Massive rings of metal and crystal rotated slowly around a central core. Lights sparkled across its surface like stars brought down from the sky. "That is incredible," whispered. "The sanctuary," Aurora explained. "My original databases mention it as a rumored safe haven for species fleeing the helix. It appears the rumors were true." The Wanderer docked at a crystal port. Armed guards waited outside. They were not human. Their bodies were made of living light, constantly shifting and changing color. The Aurora called them beings who had evolved beyond physical form. Ian walked down the boarding ramp. The guards surrounded them but did not touch them. "You will come with us," one guard said. Its voice was translated through a small device floating beside it. "The council is waiting." The council chamber was a vast dome at the heart of the sanctuary. 7 different species sat in a circle, each representing a civilization that had escaped the helix. The beings of light, the tall creatures covered in living bark, whose bodies seemed to be made of flowing water, and 4 others whose forms were even stranger, stood in the center of the circle and told their story. The invasion of Vega 4, the gift of the broken ship, the discovery of the dark matter drive, the battle in the asteroid field. When he finished, the chamber was silent. A counselor spoke first. Its light shifted to a cold blue. "Your story is interesting, but it changes nothing. The veil has remained hidden for 300 years. We have protected ourselves by staying unseen. Why should we risk everything to help a handful of humans?" "Because hiding will not save you forever," replied. "The Helix are growing stronger. They have conquered 17 systems now. In another generation they will have 50. Eventually they will find this place." "Perhaps, but that is a problem for our descendants, not for us." Stepped forward, her eyes were fierce. "I lost my entire family to the Helix, my mother, my father, my little brother. He was 8 years old. The Helix do not spare children, they do not spare anyone. If you think hiding will keep you safe, you are fooling yourselves." A counselor made a sound like rustling leaves. "We understand your pain, young one, but we cannot fight the Helix directly. We have tried before. Many of us died." Who had been silent until now raised his hand. "May I speak?" The council looked at the old man curiously. "I am 67 years old," said. "I remember Earth before the invasion. I remember when humans believed we could do anything, go anywhere, build anything. We thought the stars belonged to us." He paused, his voice growing softer. "The Helix taught us we were wrong, they broke us, made us believe we were weak, made us forget what we were." He looked around the circle. "But today I watched 19-year-old girl fly a ship through an asteroid field and destroy Helix warships. I watched a young mechanic unlock technology that was supposed to be impossible. I watched a mining engineer stand before the creatures who enslaved his people and refused to kneel." Eyes were bright. "Humans forgot who they were, now we are remembering. You can help us remember faster, or you can hide and hope the darkness never finds you." The council debated for 3 days. During that time, the humans were given quarters in the sanctuary. They were fed and cared for but also watched. Guards followed them everywhere. Spent most of her time with an engineer named Shimmer. Despite the language barriers and the differences between their species, they found common ground. Both loved machines. Both wanted to understand how things worked. "Your ship is remarkable," Shimmer said one evening. Its light was a warm gold which had learned meant curiosity and friendship. "The dark matter drive alone is decades ahead of anything we have." "It was built by desperate people," replied. "Sometimes desperation makes you smarter." "Perhaps," Shimmer paused. "I would like to see the Helix defeated. My ancestors fled from them 6 generations ago. We lost billions of our people. The fear still lives in our light." "Then help us fight." "It is not my decision to make." On the 3rd day, the council summoned again. "We have discussed your request," the counselor said. Its light was neutral gray. "We have decided that the risk is too great. The veil has protected us for 3 centuries. We will not abandon our safety for a war we cannot win." Felt his heart sink. He had known this might happen, but knowing did not make it easier. "I understand," he said quietly. "We will leave. We apologize for putting you in danger." He turned to go. And then the alarms started screaming. Warning lights flashed across the dome. The counselors rose from their seats in confusion and fear. A guard rushed in, its light flashing red. "The Helix," it announced. "A full invasion fleet has emerged at the Veil's outer boundary. They tracked the human ship through hyperspace residue. They know we are here." Every eye turned to. The counselor's light turned an angry crimson. "You led them to us. You brought destruction to our door." I did not know they could track us, said, but the excuse felt hollow even to him. On the screens that appeared around the chamber they could see the Helix fleet. Not 12 ships this time, not 20, over 70 warships led by a massive command vessel. And from that command vessel, a familiar voice broadcast across all frequencies. "Attention, inhabitants of the Veil," the Helix commander said. "I am here for the humans. Surrender them to me and I will consider allowing you to live. Resist and you will share their fate." The council looked at. Their expressions ranged from fear to anger to desperation. "You brought this upon us," the counselor said. "What do you propose we do now?" Looked at the fleet on the screen. 70 ships, an overwhelming force, no way to run, no way to hide. But maybe there was a way to fight. "I have an idea," he said slowly, "but it will require sacrifice, and it will require all of you to trust me." The counselor's light flickered. "Trust you, after you led our enemies directly to us." "Yes," met its gaze without flinching. "Because I am going to give you something no one else can. I am going to give you a victory. The first real victory against the Helix in 300 years. The chamber fell silent. Outside, the Helix fleet advanced. And inside, hope began to grow. The plan was simple, it was also insane. Stood in the council chamber and explained it to the 7 species of the Veil. Some listened with hope, others with horror. All of them understood what it meant. "The Wanderer's dark matter reservoir still holds enough power for 2 more jumps," said, "but that same power can be used another way. If we overload the containment field and detonate the core at close range, the explosion will create a space-time distortion. Everything within 10,000 kilometers will be destroyed." "Including the ship," the counselor observed. "Yes, including the ship." The chamber was silent. "You are proposing a suicide mission," a counselor said. "You would sacrifice yourself and your vessel to destroy the Helix fleet." "Not myself," shook his head. "I will be needed after the battle to lead my people to help build what comes next." He paused, "But someone must pilot the ship into position. Someone must stay aboard until the end." "Stepped forward, I will go." No, his voice was firm. "You are the only one who understands the Wanderer systems. You will be needed to build new ships, to teach others." Raised her hand, "Then I will go, I am the pilot." "You are too young and too important. Someone will need to fly whatever we build next." The arguments continued. The refugees in the cargo hold heard everything through the internal communication system. Many volunteered, parents, engineers, soldiers who had never actually been soldiers. And then's voice cut through the noise. "I will do it." Everyone turned to look at the old man. He stood near the back of the chamber, leaning on a walking cane that the sanctuary healers had given him. His white hair was thin, his hands trembled slightly, but his eyes were clear and calm. "I am 67 years old," he said. "My body is failing. The healers here have told me I have perhaps 2 years left, probably less." He smiled gently. "I have already lived a full life. I saw Earth when it was still free. I watched humanity reach for the stars. And now I have seen us fight back against the darkness." As voice broke. "Let me do this one last thing," the old man continued. "Let me give our people a future. It is a good way to die, better than any I could have hoped for." Wanted to argue, he wanted to find another way. But looking at its peaceful face, he knew there was no other choice. The old astronomer had made his decision. "You honor us," said finally, "you honor all of humanity." "I just want to see what happens when dark matter explodes," said with a small laugh. "The scientist in me is curious." The council agreed to the plan. They had no choice. The Helix fleet was advancing and the Veil's defensive forces were not strong enough to stop them alone. The Wanderer would be the weapon and would be its guardian. Preparations took 6 hours. The fleet deployed around the sanctuary, ready to engage the Helix and draw their attention. The crystalline ships were fast and maneuverable, but they lacked heavy weapons. They could not win a direct battle. They did not need to, they only needed to buy time. On the Wanderer worked frantically to prepare the dark matter core for detonation. She modified the containment systems, removed safety protocols, and created a simple trigger mechanism. When the time came, would only need to press one button. Sat within the control room, she was crying but she tried to hide it. "You taught me so much," she said, "about the old days, about what humanity used to be." "We never stopped being that," replied. "We just forgot, now we will remember." He placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You are an excellent pilot, the best I have ever seen. When this is over, you will fly ships that make the Wanderer look like a toy. You will carry humanity back to the stars. I do not want you to die." Everyone dies. The question is whether we die for something. Today, I die for everything that matters. The Helix fleet entered the Veil proper. Their weapons began to fire. The ships scattered and regrouped, drawing the enemy deeper into the nebula. On the command vessel, the Helix commander watched with satisfaction. The prey was cornered. The strange beings of light were fighting bravely, but they would fall. They always fell. And then his sensors detected something new. A single ship emerging from behind the sanctuary. The same cargo hauler he had given to the humans as a joke. The same ship that had killed 5 of his vessels in the asteroid field. "Destroy it," he ordered. 12 Helix warships turned to engage the Wanderer. Their weapons' fire filled space with deadly light. But was at the controls. She flew like she had never flown before. The Wanderer twisted and spun through the chaos, absorbing some hits on its shields, dodging others entirely. "Shields at 60%, Aurora reported, 50%, 40. Did not slow down. She aimed the ship directly at the heart of the Helix fleet, at the massive command vessel where the commander watched with growing unease. "What are they doing?" he demanded. "They cannot hope to damage us with one small ship." His sensor officer looked at the readings, and then looked again. His insect face went pale. "Commander, there is an energy buildup in that ship. It is beyond anything I have ever seen, if they detonate that power source at close range." The commander understood immediately. "All ships pull back now." But it was too late. The Wanderer was already deep inside the formation. Helix ships were all around it, blocking escape routes. The vessels had done their job perfectly, herding the enemy into a tight cluster. On the bridge of the Wanderer sat alone. Aurora had transferred all other crew members to escape pods 5 minutes ago, and the other refugees were already drifting toward the sanctuary. Only remained. "Thank you, Aurora," he said to the AI, "for everything." "It was my purpose to help my crew," Aurora replied. Her holographic image appeared one last time. "I wish we had more time together." "We had enough, we used it well." On the screen, the Helix command ship loomed ahead. The commander's vessel, the monster who had enslaved worlds and laughed at human suffering. Thought about his daughter who had died in the invasion 30 years ago. His wife who had followed her a year later, heartbroken. His who never got the chance to be born. He thought about who would build something new, who would create wonders, who would fly to stars not yet discovered. He thought about humanity, broken but not defeated, fallen but rising again. "It is a good day," he said softly. And he pressed the button. The dark matter core breached containment. For one fraction of a second, the Wanderer became a star. Energy beyond comprehension burst outward in every direction. Space itself twisted and tore. The Helix command ship ceased to exist. The commander, who had conquered 17 systems and believed himself invincible, was erased from the universe in an instant. 70 warships became 70 clouds of debris. The explosion lit up the entire Veil Nebula. For a moment, night became day. Beings across 100 light-years saw the flash and wondered what it meant. On the escape pods, the refugees watched through tiny viewports. They saw the light, they felt the shockwave, and they knew that had done what he promised. Wept openly, held her in silence, stood apart, tears streaming down his face, unable to look away. When the light finally faded, there was nothing left but silence and stars. The Helix fleet was gone, all of it, every ship, every soldier, every trace of the creatures who had come to destroy them. And in the center of the destruction, where the Wanderer had been, there was only empty space. No wreckage, no debris, just a gentle glow that slowly faded away. Had become part of the stars. 1 week later, stood before the Council of the Veil. The mood had changed completely. The counselor, whose light had been cold and suspicious before, now glowed with warm gold. The other species looked at the humans with new eyes. "You gave us a victory," the counselor said, "the first in 300 years. The Helix will think twice before attacking the Veil again." "It was not just us," replied. "It was all of us together. That is how we beat them." The council conferred briefly, then they announced their decision. "The Veil Coalition hereby welcomes humanity as a member species. We will share our technology, we will share our knowledge, we will help you build new ships, and when the time comes, we will help you take back your worlds." The refugees in the observation gallery erupted in cheers. In the months that followed, humanity changed. Worked with Shimmer and engineers from 7 species to design new vessels. Ships that combined human determination with grace, durability, and technologies from civilizations humans had never dreamed of. The first ship completed was a sleek warbird with a dark matter drive of its own, was given command. She named it the became humanity's ambassador to the coalition. He spoke before the council regularly, sharing human history, human hopes, and human dreams. The other species began to see what had seen in those final moments, a people who refused to stay broken. More human refugees found their way to the Veil. Word had spread through secret channels that there was a place where humans were fighting back. They came in ones and twos, then in dozens, then in hundreds. Every one of them wanted to join the cause. The Helix heard the stories too. At first, they dismissed them as myths, but then their patrols started disappearing. Then their outer colonies began to fall. Then they realized the truth. Humanity was coming back. 1 year after the Battle of the Veil stood before the full council. Behind him, through massive windows, a fleet of ships waited, human ships and ships and ships and ships, all of them ready. All of them aimed at Vega 4. "We are going home," announced. "We are going to free our people, and then we are going to keep going until every world the Helix has taken is free again." The council rose in approval. 7 species stood united with humanity for the first time in history. Looked out at the fleet. Somewhere out there was at the helm of the ready to lead the first wave. Was in engineering, preparing weapons that would make the Helix tremble. 200 refugees who had once been given a broken ship as a joke were now the core of a movement that would change the galaxy. And somewhere perhaps was watching, the old astronomer who had believed in them when no one else did, who had given his life so that others could live, who had become the spark that lit a fire across the stars. Smiled and spoke the words had taught him, old words from an old Earth poem that humanity thought they had forgotten. "We are small, we are fragile, we are stubborn beyond reason, and we do not stay beaten." The translated his words into light. Across the veil, 7 species watched. The fleet began to move. The Helix had given humanity a piece of junk and called it mercy. They never imagined what that junk would become. And now at last they would learn.